If you clicked on this video wondering whether or not you may be trans, then this video is for you. And for anyone who wants to understand the truth about transitioning, the implications, and the procedures involved, then this video is also for you. My name is Yolanda Melody. I am a biological female. I have never transitioned before. However, all throughout my childhood, I experienced gender dysphoria. I was convinced that I was a boy. I wanted everyone to refer to me as he, him, and for many, many, many years, I was 100% convinced that I was a boy. Then by the age of 11, I suddenly realised that actually, I'm just me. I suddenly found a way to embrace femininity in my own unique way. I honestly feel like the reason for me having gender dysphoria as a child was because there was no real representation of a strong female shown to me in the cartoons that I used to watch. As a child, you're very impressionable. You often look to cartoon characters and films and television to give you the inspiration because you're still figuring out who you are, right? Looking back now, if I had been born in this day and age where gender ideology is taught in schools and transitioning is heavily promoted, I would most likely have gone through some form of medical transition. And if I'd have done that, I would be in a very, very, very dark place at this point right now. I am so happy that I was not influenced either way and I simply was allowed to be who I felt I was at the time without having to take hormones or go through a medical procedure. I'm happy that every choice that I've made is my own. And what I want to do is help you figure out what is coming from your mind and what is coming from other people's opinions, beliefs, and the media. While I am unable to tell you from personal experience what the transitioning process is like, I have seen a significant amount of videos and testimonies from people who've transitioned that are happy, and people who've transitioned who now are living with regret about their decision. These people fall into the category of detransitioners. Quite a few years ago, detransitioning was not really spoke of much. To be honest, it was actually quite rare, but with the rise of woke ideology and gender fluidity being taught in schools, we are now seeing an epidemic of people who are detransitioning. Meaning that they're now realising that actually they would have been happy if they'd have just never transitioned at all and stayed as they were. However, due to many factors, they felt so strongly at the time that transitioning was the only answer, and now they can't go back on the changes that they have made. I want to stress this a lot, that this is a huge decision, and no matter what anybody tells you, it is not reversible. While the media will paint some kind of fairy tale about how transitioning is such an amazing, easy process, once you actually start looking into the procedures involved and the potential side effects and health risks, you start to uncover that this couldn't be further from the truth. So what I'm going to do is walk you through the stages of what to expect if you do plan to transition. The first stage for many after speaking to a doctor is to get a prescription for something called puberty blockers. Puberty blockers are continuously promoted as a drug that supposedly is completely safe, completely reversible, and simply puts a pause on puberty so that you can have more time to think about whether you do want to transition or not. Here's some more information from the NHS website, based in the UK. Puberty blocking drugs postpone the process by suppressing hormone release. They include Lupron, in brackets, Leuprolide, a monthly or once every 3 months intramuscular injection. Fenzolvi, a different Leuprolide injection administered every 6 months. Or you could go with one of the two listed below. Lupron is a drug that's been about since the 1980s and is traditionally used to treat patients who have prostate cancer, but also it was mainly used in prisons to chemically castrate sex offenders. This drug is now being used and rebranded as puberty blockers for teenagers. It says here on the NHS website, puberty blockers pause the physical changes of puberty, such as breast development or facial hair. Little is known about the long-term side effects of hormone or puberty blockers in children with gender dysphoria. So although this drug has been about for a while, it is only just recently being administered in this way. Although GIDS advises this is a physically reversible treatment if stopped, it is not known what the psychological effects may be. It's also not known whether hormone blockers affect the development of the teenage brain or children's bones. Side effects may also include hot flushes, fatigue, and mood alterations. From the age of 16, teenagers who've been on hormone blockers for at least 12 months may be given cross-sex hormones, also known as gender-affirming hormones. These hormones can cause some irreversible changes, such as breast development, caused by taking estrogen, breaking or deepening of the voice, caused by taking testosterone.
This is what I mean. This is how deep my voice is. It's gotten deeper over time, and it's settled. This is what I mean by hair loss, and it just keeps getting worse. It keeps thinning. It keeps receding backwards. And I'm not exactly sure that's coming back. Those are the main things when I talk about being androgenized to a point of no return. I really don't see those being fixable. So that's when I talk about, just kind of staying how I am, regardless of how I feel. That's why, just because I don't really see me personally being able to come back from what's happened so far. So I hope that's a little explanatory.
Testosterone's a really powerful hormone.
Testosterone is very powerful, and it's actually much more powerful than estrogen in many ways. And a lot of the effects from it are much more permanent than the effects of estrogen for male to female. People don't know that.
I passed as a man fairly well, and I navigated life as a man fairly well. So having to rediscover navigating life as a female and trying to look feminine again was super difficult. It's still hard now. When your voice drops from taking testosterone, it doesn't go back. And that's something I really struggle with. I used to love singing, but the way testosterone affected my voice, I don't like how I sound when I sing anymore.
Long-term cross-sex hormone treatment may cause temporary or even permanent infertility. Let me just reiterate that this is from the NHS website. This is not a conspiracy theory or fear-mongering. This is what they're telling you up front. Let's read on. There are some uncertainty about the risks of long-term cross-sex hormone treatment. The clinic will discuss these with you and the importance of regular monitoring blood tests with your GP. Just to reiterate, if you do intend to transition and stay trans for the rest of your life, you will need to continue to take these hormones for the rest of your life. What's quite alarming is that obviously everyone who transitions is transitioning to permanently be the opposite sex for the rest of their life. However, there is uncertainty about the long-term effects of using these hormones, almost indicating that they're safe to use, but only for a short while. The most common risks or side effects include blood clots, gallstones, weight gain, acne, abnormal levels of fat in the blood, elevated liver enzymes, high concentration of red blood cells, hair loss or balding, also known as alopecia. Long-term cross-sex hormone treatment may also lead eventually to infertility, even if the treatment is stopped. So that's something to bear in mind, that the longer that you take the hormones for, the higher the risk of infertility. I mean, if you believe in science, I would say it's quite obvious that if you are taking synthetic hormones, your fertility will be compromised. But that's just the beginning. If you want to properly transition, there are many, many more steps to take, and it's not going to be an overnight change. This is going to take quite a lot of money, pain, the list is endless. So if you are a woman looking to transition into a man, the first procedure to go ahead will be a mastectomy, which is removal of both breasts, nipple repositioning, dermal implant and tattoo. Obviously, there are complications that can happen depending on which surgeon you go to, depending on how experienced they are, depending on fate and whether or not you can handle being under anaesthetic for certain amounts of time, but that's just the top. If you want to fully transition, you will need to get a phalloplasty or metoidioplasty, scrotoplasty, and a penile implant. Sometimes if there is not enough skin to create the penile implant, the surgeon will need to take skin from your arm, and if that fails, they can also take skin from your colon, which is an essential organ, but, you know, I'm presuming that these surgeons know what they're doing.
Can you tell me about the procedures that you had?
I've had 7 surgeries. I've had 1 stress heart attack. I've had a helicopter life ride with a pulmonary embolism. I've had 17 rounds of antibiotics. I had 6 inches of hair on the inside of my urethra for 17 months. Nobody would help me, including the doctor that did this to me because I lost my insurance. I get infections every 3 to 4 months. I'm probably not going to live very long.
Was there any real discussion of the risks and the side effects?
No, there's not. And I know that people want to think that there is, but there's not. The truth is that medical transition is experimental. We have studies that said that medical transition helps mental health with kids. They've all been retracted, modified, changed. But the only long-term study tells us 7 to 10 years is when transgender people are the most suicidal.
After?
After surgery. But that's transphobic to say.
What?
That's a phalloplasty. That's a bottom surgery. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States telling girls that they can be boys.
Oh, in addition to this, you'll need to have a removal of the womb and the ovaries, and fallopian tubes may also be considered. If you want to transition from a male to a female, this is the long list of surgeries that you will need to have in order for that to happen. There are also numerous complications involved with having these surgeries. Something that is not often talked about as well is something called dilation. After having a vaginoplasty, the hole that was created to emulate a vagina is actually recognised as an open wound by the body. So the body will continuously try to close that hole, just like if you had an open wound anywhere on the body. To combat this, in order to maintain your new vagina, you will need to insert an implement like this into the hole at least 3 times a day for the rest of your life. There are also complications whereby trans women have reported burning and itching sensations on the inside that don't go away, hairs that grow on the inside of the vaginal wall, and if that wasn't enough surgery, there's also the option to have breast implants, which if you live in the UK, you will have to foot that bill. Another thing to bear in mind is that if you are in America, all of these procedures will cost a hefty amount of money. I'm not too sure how many of these procedures are available on the NHS in the UK, but if you do want breast implants, facial feminization surgery, or hair transplants, you will have to pay for these procedures. One thing that I heard from a trans woman is that most trans people do not actually have what is called bottom surgery, as in surgery on the lower region. So all the things that I have listed to you are optional procedures that most trans people don't actually go through with because of the level of risks when it comes to the physical and the psychological risks. The risk of having idle thoughts and depression is greatly increased after going through with these medical procedures. So most trans people have to live with the harsh reality that they are not fully where they want to be. They could look outwardly like a female, but still be male downstairs, or vice versa. This not only to me would cause the gender dysphoria to continue, so the gender dysphoria would never go away. You would also feel like you're not fully one or the other. But in addition to this, as much as people don't want to look at this reality, it will cause limitations when it comes to dating, because most people are only attracted to a biological woman or a biological man. I'm very specific about who this video is for and what my intentions are in making this. My intention is definitely not to upset someone who has already transitioned. If you are a person watching and you've gone through that process and you're happy, then that's great. But I want people to be informed if they are thinking about this and they haven't made any steps. I think it's important for people to know exactly what they are getting into before they start making life-altering decisions. People aren't even able to get tattoos until the age of 18 legally, but the age which people are allowed to transition is getting lower and lower. But the strange thing is that a tattoo, first off, can be maybe covered up. You do have an option to get it removed, but it's never really truly removed. A tattoo to me has far less implications than transitioning does. If you don't conform to traditional gender roles, that doesn't mean to say that you have to transition. I myself do not fit the stereotype of a typical woman. I have my own quirks. I have some traits that could be perceived as quite masculine or boisterous. Some days I want to wear dresses, some days I want to wear joggers. Most days I want to wear joggers. Sometimes I don't feel very feminine. But that doesn't mean that I have to go and get surgery. It doesn't mean that I have to change my body. In fact, your body isn't even you. Your body is simply a vessel. If we're gonna get spiritual here, you are a soul. This body is on loan, as I see it. You're only here for a short amount of time in the grand scheme of things. Life is so short. And I personally don't see why you should have to suffer so much in changing so many aspects of the body that you were given. For what purpose? Before making huge decisions like this, what I would do personally is to first figure out what is going on within the mind. What am I not addressing? Why do I feel like this? Why do I even want to be the opposite sex? What is the attraction? What's the reason? For me, some of the reasons were very, very simple. When I was younger, because I was female, I wasn't allowed to go out late at night. I wasn't allowed to do all the things that boys were allowed to do because boys were seen as stronger and they could fight better, and as a female I was vulnerable, so I felt like I was mollycoddled and made to feel like I couldn't defend myself. Another thing was that I didn't like how in Disney all the women were being represented as weak and the sidekick to the man. Well, I always wanted to be the main character. There are so many other things that it could be, and being trans is not the only answer. If you found this video helpful, or if you think that this could help someone that you know, then please share this video. Comment below your thoughts, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Love you, bye!